Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Burwell, your host of V Speaks Conversations with Heart and Soul. And we close out the day of our first day of shooting on season 2 with Dr. Bart Precourt, who is going to get us healthy, get us inspired, and get us right. Dr. Bart, welcome to our podcast.
Well, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here too. I have so many questions. Like one of them is, what is something that you're focusing on right now, because you are heavy into nutrition as an acupuncturist and as a chiropractor, and you know more than most people because I listen to everything that you've got out there, and we've had you in the magazine, V Magazine, a couple of times as well lately. What is some new things that you're basically extolling? Like I'll say during the pandemic, one of them, which was a simple key that I didn't know anything about, was check your vitamin D levels and like different things that are knowledge that you have that the average person isn't walking in right now, that can just, you find it like very today right now, because I think like because of that was 2 years ago, I went and got my D checked, and then I needed to get on, supplements. And then I've gone into obviously Prema all the time to eat well, your new store that opened, is it 2?
It's been 2 years.
2 years, right? Well, congratulations. And
Thank you.
Thank you to all of us who live on 30A that we can eat healthy and feel good about ourselves. And it's just taken off like wildfire. And you do the best of the best with that. I've heard several people say to me, I won't say the competitor's name or competitors' names, but they say they figured out how to do this right, and they figured out how to execute the consistency and timeliness of getting the food out, and the food's great. Those are huge accolades for people that are in basically, let's call it the service industry, the restaurant industry, but then, the health industry as well.
Well, there's a lot right there.
Okay.
There's a lot right there. So to your first question, what is it? There's a focus right now that I probably have. I would say, especially since the pandemic, it's nothing that's super exciting. Well, I tell you what, it is exciting. Okay. It's not something that's super radical or new cutting edge science. It's really paying attention to the foundations.
Okay.
So more than ever, I think all of those health tips, those ideas of being healthy, to move right, to eat right, to think right, there's real now as they've ever been. And they've been tested.
Right.
They were tested through the pandemic. We saw people do it good, and we saw them do it not so good. We saw people sit at home under fear, drink and eat more, quite frankly, and not move their bodies and get really unwell during the time. And then we also saw the opposite. We saw people take advantage of the opportunity to have more time in their lives, and they started eating better, and they started moving better, and they started thinking, and they had some creativity opportunities. And so with all of that being said, as a healthcare provider, and we stayed steady right through it, right now, probably the greatest message, if we're thinking about just that component of it, like say the health component of this, is back to basics, and it starts with food.
Okay.
It starts with food. Movement should be a normal. We're human beings. We are designed to move. Doing what you and I are doing right now wasn't on the menu of like, this would be really good for a human being. Let's sit all day.
Right.
I know we have to do it.
Right.
So making sure that we're moving properly on a daily basis, eating properly and thinking properly. And the fun thing about it is I think that people are embracing it more now than ever. I've been doing this. This is my 26th year. And I feel like there's more of a, hey doc, what do you got? Versus
I'm sick. Can you fix me?
Yeah, and that happens as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yet I think the tide, I don't know if it's turning for the whole population, but there's definitely a sector that's moving in that direction.
Yeah, and I've noticed, a lot more people, I don't know if it was a groundswell or whatever, that people just like wanted to do dry January or just like take a whole year off from drinking. And it must be really true because there are so many antidotes to that with like, non-alcoholic drinks and all that because, people want to still make money selling stuff. So, and I know a lot of people, even myself, decided to do a pretty good version of that, and I feel 100 times better than I did prior to that. And then obviously eating well too. But I think so. Basically, what you're saying is that there's a lot more health consciousness too. And then they're just keep looking to you to like kind of go to the next level. Like, okay, I mastered this with you. Now, how do I get even healthier or stronger, like foundationally?
Yeah, and that's the fun part. That's the fun part when we hear about doctors being in practice. That's why we call it practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's always another level, because everyone that walks through the door is at a different place.
Right.
So that's the fun journey to watch different people climb each level. So maybe someone walks in with relatively good health and literally just looking to find out how to level up. Love that opportunity. And what's neat here in our community specifically, there's a lot of, this is a healthy community.
It is.
You walk outside and you look up and down our 30A and you see people moving. And if you're driving your car just a mile down the road to get someplace, you almost feel guilty.
Right.
Like, why didn't I walk or ride my bike?
Right.
So it's a good influence that we have here. And I think, I think collectively, I would love to say that nationwide, we have elevated our consciousness of health across the board. I'm not that confident yet. I think the people that were on the edge have, and we've drawn more people over to taking personal responsibility. I don't know that it's the number where it needs to be yet.
Right. So during the pandemic, I was telling you before we started the interview that I spent a lot of time watching your Facebook Lives. And I found myself going, kind of like automatic, like, oh, I got to go see what Dr. Bart says today. And it was very comforting and very informative and very inspirational. And I told you that my takeaway from it was the tips that you were giving were real and I was listening to them. But there was another component to it on a deeper level. And that was, this guy really cares about you. You don't know me. You don't know I'm watching it. But you could tell that you really did care about getting this information to people. And your authenticity really comes through. So, and it was great. Like some days when I woke up, like not like going, okay, what's going on? This is like the craziest thing in the world. And then you be there with your bulldogs and talking in the car and giving the Facebook Live and like saying something and being like incredibly not judgmental at all what people were doing. You have a really good bedside manner with that, just trying to teach people to be better. And I just want to thank you for that because you helped me a couple of days during the pandemic.
I love hearing that. Thank you for saying that. I love hearing that because oftentimes I don't get the response.
Yeah.
I do trust the universe. I trust that. And there's two parts to that. Yeah. So one, I've always had the philosophy that if you put it out there, rewards will come. Assuming you're putting out there good things for human beings, really putting out love.
Right.
So if I wake up every morning, which I do, and then I do a little morning ritual, and it's a gratitude meditation, if you want to call it, and I get my exercise in, I position myself physically, emotionally, spiritually ready to serve.
Yeah.
That's when I get in the truck. I got my dogs by my side, which you get your best friends next to you.
8 of them, by the way.
Yeah. So how could anything but kindness and love come out of my mouth?
Correct.
And then I just get to share what I do every day in a tidbit. So that part of it, absolutely fantastic. And then the other part is semi-selfish, that I know if I'm putting really good things out in the world, there's a good chance at some point it's going to circle back.
Correct.
And today,
good karma.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think you should, I think it's this new medium that we're talking in right now. I was uncomfortable about it. It's new. It's the modern day way to kind of connect and communicate that was definitely like amped up by the fact that we were shuttered, basically. So you had to kind of jump in front of a camera. If you wanted to, I'm going to use the word stay relevant, but I don't even really mean it like that. I just mean stay connected, right?
Yeah.
How does the business keep going if you aren't, jumping into that pool? But I have found that done right and authentically, it's a very, very powerful medium. And I don't know how it all works. Like, I don't know, like, we're still walking this thing out.
Yeah.
We don't know how it works, but I don't care either because I just feel like we're supposed to be walking it out. And it's the next layer of, the sister to, the magazine to continue storytelling. So here you are in the magazine, Health Made Simple, with Dr. Bart and your precious wife, Kelli. And this is great. And you had said, I asked you, well, has anyone said that they read the article or saw it? Because, you put an article in a magazine so someone can read it, and you want to get the feedback just so that, like something means something that you're doing. And then, here you are, and whether we like it or not, because I still fight this whole thing that we're doing right now. I really do. It still is more tactile and deeper than the printed pages. And you get to see nuances of a person and, laughing or smile, whatever. There is a different level of connectivity with this. So because, I'm in the business I'm in, and obviously it's something that, you really probably need to be doing to perpetuate, all the wisdom and tips and good news and health and promoting health and wellness. We kind of have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'll share my thought on that.
Okay.
So I did not get into this space, even the Facebook lives or my podcast, with the thought of I need to do this.
You just wanted to.
I literally saw it as an opportunity.
To serve.
To serve.
Yeah. Okay. That's even better.
And that goes to your point of the authenticity of it. And because I think if I got in this and I thought, well, if I do this, I'll get a certain amount of exposure or likes, and that's inherently, that's the wrong reason to get into it, because that's not a victory. That's not a win-win situation.
Right.
I literally saw it as an opportunity to, after 20 plus years of being in practice, what are some of the simplest things that I say thousands of times a month to share with the people before they get to my office?
Yeah, good.
And maybe they wouldn't even have to come in if I shared that with them. So, and someone might say, well, that's a bad business model. Yeah. No, because we're very blessed in the sense that we're dealing with the next steps. But if everyone took care of the front steps, we'd still have plenty of business and opportunities after that. So
motive and intention is always the only way to go.
It is.
Yeah.
So I never got into this thinking I had to. So I was recently approached and someone said, you have to do TikTok. Okay. And I was, well, that wouldn't be authentic.
Yeah.
Or not in that sense that you might see someone dancing or something like that. And don't get me wrong, I watch them every now and then because they're entertaining.
Correct.
And the thought of me doing it, it's just not for me.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the authentic Bart.
Yeah.
So, and I think as you're doing this, I only see that what you're doing is the authentic part of you that you don't have to necessarily do it any other way because you wouldn't know.
No. Yeah. And I always do have, I follow my own destiny by like what I want, because I think we're also connected that what I want is what pretty much everyone wants, So when I would listen to podcasts and I would hear the podcasters talking over the guests, and like it was like, hey, this is my show, and like you're like a backup singer, and or like it was advertorial or whatever. I'm like, oh, I don't want a podcast like that. I want a real conversation to enrich, enlighten, teach, give wisdom, promote, or I don't really want to do it. And so weirdly, and like, when you're looking at the numbers and everything, and the numbers don't really look good, like compared to like the world of where they're calculating numbers, like of whatever the millions of everybody. And then, but I didn't care. I still don't care. And then several people like in the last maybe 3 months or whatever, oh yeah, I listen to your podcast, and I'm like, well, all these people that listen to my podcast, it doesn't seem like it's netting to the numbers, but I didn't care. I just knew, I guess I'll keep doing it because they seem like they like it and that we're talking about some relative things that people want to listen to. And so, yeah, I'm the same way with you about that too. I mean, I was nervous in the pandemic about, as a business owner, covering my bases and making sure for the responsibility I have to advertisers, my employees, doing this for so long and seeing it into the finish line. I had no idea if we were going to survive. Absolutely none. But I just had to fight and go get in my boxing gloves on and go in there and do what you do when you have a business and you're an entrepreneur, and just keep hitting, and hopefully, you get to stay open.
When it's interesting you say that. So we were opening Prema exactly like when the pandemic was starting.
Yes.
And mind you, my wife and I, we've never been in the restaurant business before. We've been in service business for decades. And we just were like, oh, if we can be in service here, we can be in service there. We'll just have to learn those systems as well. And we did it smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. And it was kind of comical. We were like, this is perfect. If we survive this,
you're golden.
Right. There's a good opportunity, a good chance that we are going to survive the long haul and thrive.
Right. And you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, it's interesting. So we had been kind of told you can't do what you think you're about to do, and not in a negative way. So, and I'll explain that. So part of the premise of Prema is that we are 100% organic, not kind of, not sort of, not just on weekends. We literally, like, there was and that's my wife and I's standard.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even a advertising point of view. It was, this is our standard. And I also wanted to make it safe and healthy for if I needed people to be able to eat in a healthy place medicinally, or just for the love of just incredible food. So when we set out to do this, and we, we have amazing restaurants down here. So and we all know they're all our friends.
Right.
And most of them said, yeah, Bart, and no.
What? They would say that?
They would say that you can't do it. You're not going to be able to find the food.
Oh, okay.
From the
purveyors.
Yeah, from the different purveyors.
Yeah.
And I thought,
because of the pandemic, or for other
just
reasons?
in general, nothing to do with the pandemic.
Okay.
They said there's no way you're going to be able to go from organic juice and have organic cold pressed celery every day, organic, grass fed eggs every day, organic coffee every day, organic creamers every day, everything being organic. They said there's just no way you can do that. And my wife and I, because we didn't know the restaurant world, we said, why not? This is how we eat anyways. So we figured,
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, so it really is sometimes.
Right, it is. I agree.
Yeah, so we just set out on that journey, and we figured it out little bit by little bit. Does it come without challenges? No, but the reality is we don't know any other way.
Right.
So it's been an interesting obstacle sometimes, meaning that sometimes the truck shows up with food without our food.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's just any business right now that works, or like I say, sometimes doesn't work. I think the pandemic hangover, I call it, is that so many people, I think, sometimes still use the excuses of the former pandemic to not rally up and and do like we did before, I mean, I've gone into more restaurants where they're not even bringing me my check. So I just feel bad. I'm like, well, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to say, can I have my check? And then I'm going to give them my credit card, because everyone still, not everyone, but many, many people still seem so overloaded mentally by the pandemic. I mean, health-wise, I think not so much of who I've been in contact with, but the mental weariness of what the pandemic did, that hangover is still very real.
Yeah.
And so I'm very sensitive to not getting upset if something doesn't. I'm just they're in a hard place right now. I can tell that they can barely ask me what I want to eat right now because they're stressed.
And I think that speaks to the fact that we weren't ready for it. We had inherently, and I say this very gently, we had inherently become weaker. We've become soft.
Yeah.
And in many components,
yeah, agreed.
Even emotionally.
Yeah.
And there's essentially a PTSD that is just lingering, a hangover, and not many people know how to do it. And it also presents amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
So for the businessmen and women out there who are able to lead from the top or lead from the front, which is a scary place to lead from, and bring together the people that can reintroduce service and do it at a high level, will thrive.
Yes.
As much as I would love to say it is our food that does it, the people that work,
I know,
they're amazing.
They're
kind.
I know, and they're invested.
Yeah. And they're not perfect by any means.
No, nobody is, but you can tell they're invested in the business and they love it. And I noticed that and it's very different than other businesses. You don't see that other places. And then, it's not like, oh, you just have like, John and Susie who are like your number one guys, because you have different people that are coming in. Even in the summer when you have people coming in for like college kids, they're invested for that summer too. So what are you preaching from the top down that's getting that?
$1 million question. So one, I think it has been our way, our business way, and our personal way for decades now. So what we have at Balance Health Studio is really an extension. So if you've been there,
yes,
you would see the same and feel the same kindness and love that you would see and feel at Prema. Right. So our team, our core group, has that within them. And I'll be honest with you, it's not teachable.
Yeah, it's innate.
Not. So that is our leadership group. And then from there, it filters.
Yeah.
But if the top gets shaky, everything gets shaky.
Well, then you're like, I mean, I don't even want to say, I don't know enough about it to say the law of attraction, but I do think like people are magnets toward your own persona.
I 100%.
It happens here. Like
100%.
I find that, yeah.
And that is the biggest gut checker. So if we have challenges, we always say, where did we go astray here? What were we not? Where were our eyes not? Where were our ears not listening?
Right.
Because if there's a challenge anywhere in this chain, we have to acknowledge that most likely this is part of something we are or are not doing.
Yeah. So you got into this field in reading about you when you were 18 or 19 when you had a sport injury, right? In rugby. Tough game. Where was that?
Up in Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah. So
are you from there?
I'm from the Northeast. I'm from Connecticut.
I'm from Duxbury on the Cape Cod.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get it.
So I get it. I get your
tough, hard, cold winters.
Correct.
Just got off a phone call from today, and it's gray season. Yeah.
Yeah. So you was it bad?
Yeah, I got an injury to my lower spine, and specifically L4, L5, and S1. We're playing Yale, and I get hit. We were on frozen ground outside, and I get hit by a bunch of dudes, and I couldn't move.
Oh God.
Yeah, and it was. I didn't know if it was just because it's cold and it was so cold. It was so brutal out there. It was early March. Anyways, had to get lifted off the field by my teammates. And next thing you know, I'm in the hospital where they're telling me that I have 3 bulging herniated discs in my lower spine. Combine that with the doctor. I remember this moment so clearly that the doctor tells me that I was done playing contact sports. I was 19 years old and it's as if
in the prime of your life.
I was captain of my team. And,
wow.
And so I had this. What's interesting is that I had this partial paralysis from my belly button down.
Okay.
So imagine being, a young man in college playing rugby or playing any sport, just in like really the prime of your life, quite frankly, and all the other things, dating, all of that, and nothing working below your belly button.
Right.
So not a good gig.
No, not good.
So fortunately, I had a mother who didn't really take that as an answer. We literally drove off to this chiropractor's office. And I remember asking, where are we going? And she says, I'm going to my chiropractor, which I thought was funny because I'd never heard that word spoken in my house.
Huh.
I never
so you didn't know she was going to one?
I didn't know what one was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think I'd heard like chiropractic and quack. Like that was the only association I had. So anyhow, I show up and guys, kind as can be, happy as can be, healthy as can be. And he says to me, oh, Bart, you know what? You have misalignment in your lower spine. You got pressure on the nerves. That's why you can't feel them.
Okay.
That's what's going on lower. If we get the pressure off the nerves and you take better care of yourself at 19 years old, you'll heal.
Okay.
In that moment, it was as if I was dying to
come back to life.
Yeah.
Resurrected.
Yes. And it was that inspiration that I think carries with me a little bit today. Now I'm just kind of come up with this because he didn't do anything. He just gave me words that I could work off of.
Well, yeah, he spoke over you and basically like he spoke over you life.
Yeah. And
the power of a doctor doing that, they can speak life. And I had breast cancer 24 years ago.
Okay.
And I was only married for 1.5 years, and it was like obviously, overwhelming and scary and all that. And I had a doctor, and who said, and this is 24 years ago, he was like a doctor for the army, and then he left the army. So he was kind of like a badass, and he said, "You got this. You're fine." And I just believed him. And thank God I was, and was supposed to get chemo and radiation, had like a really huge tumor, and then I didn't want it because I didn't believe in it. And I thought, well, if I don't believe in it, it can't work, so I don't want to get it. And then basically, this is kind of like really out there that I'm even saying this right now, but I prayed about it and said, if I don't need chemo or radiation, I want a sign. And I want you to tell me that 10 doctors will tell me that I don't need it. So my oncologist called 2 weeks later on a Friday, and he said, hey, I'm going to a tumor pathology convention, and I'd like to study your tumor. Is that okay? And I'm like, you took it out of me, and I don't care about this. You can do what you want with my tumor. And then Monday afternoon at 5 o'clock, he called, and he said, I just want to tell you the results. And he said, we all unanimously voted that you do not need chemo and radiation. And I said, how many doctors were there? And he said, that's a weird question. And I said, yeah, I know. How many? He said 10.
How about that? Huh?
Yeah. So I really do think doctors have such carry a lot of weight and responsibility when someone's diagnosed at the beginning to really either, just like instill a lot of faith in you or not. So I think that was great that happened. But then so how long of a journey was that back?
So it was actually relatively quick. I probably shouldn't have been, but I was back in the rugby field in 2 or 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
So he was able to adjust you to the point.
Adjust me, pressure off the nerves. So I was moving and grooving, still in pain, but you're 19, you knucklehead, right?
Right.
So I'd go back, play rugby, get hurt again,
right.
End up back in his office.
Okay.
And the message was always the same. Take better care of yourself, you get better results. That's never left. That's the same message I say today to my patients.
Right.
Take better care of yourself, get better results. You don't like your results, change your actions. And they're very, very fundamental. Back to earlier in our conversation about the foundations. And embracing those is so empowering. Because if I asked you today, Lise, could you move a little bit better this week? Could you get a little better action? Yeah. Could you eat a little better?
Right.
Yeah. Could you clear your mind a little bit and put a little gratitude out there? 3 easy yeses.
Right.
And that right there, that compounding effect is massive.
So what did you do differently? Because you were young, you were already strong, you were an athlete. So what could you do differently? Like when you said, like what steps did you take to continue to strengthen yourself that allowed you to even go back out into like the war of athletics?
So there was 2 things. One, this is how fundamental it was. I didn't drink a lot of water at the time. I was an athlete. And I was constantly dehydrated, which means you're going to constantly be injured.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
you're going to pull muscles, sprain ankles, all the above. And that was me.
Okay.
Recovery would be harder. He got me drinking water regularly, which was something I still talk about every day today. About half your body weight in ounces is a good benchmark. That, and I started to understand the relevance, the correlation between mobility, or I'll call it flexibility, and injury. Just started correlating them. Not saying that I was practicing it. I was about 19 years old, right? So just
seeds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, I was one of those people that would always say, well, I have really tight hamstrings. And that is something, now that I look back at that, is I caused those tight hamstrings. Okay. And I could also make them looser. But tight hamstrings will lead to back problems, which will change your posture, lead to shoulder problems. And they're all connected. So that just an awareness. The next 15 years of my life was testing that and trying to deny it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was still being tight and doing what I could do. I did them all the time, like lift weights, play hard sports, get injured every now and then. So I keep doing those things, but I wasn't doing the things I was a little uncomfortable with. Maybe getting introduced to yoga. Yeah. So it wasn't until I gave up rugby, started a martial arts. Yeah. I guess I call it a career. It wasn't professional or anything.
But were you competing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I thought it'd be better. I thought it'd be safer.
Interesting.
So I took up mixed martial arts.
Okay.
And I loved it. And it was such a martial arts is something you can continue to learn the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful in the sense that you're never the best and you can always learn. So it forces you to be massively humble and still challenge yourself, compete with yourself to some degree. So I took that up, and then I found myself getting injured a lot.
Okay.
Yes. Fortunately, my wife at this point in my career, in my life, was also coming out of her athletic career.
As an Olympian
in the 96 games.
For field hockey.
Yes, which was hard and rigorous. Think of everything that an athlete needs to be. Mm-hmm. And she was looking for kind of the yin to the yang. Like what would the next part of her life look like? What would that next chapter look like for herself physically? And she dove deep into the yoga world. And I was like, all for it. Like, this is cool. Right. I would have never thought of myself as a yogi, right? Mixed martial arts guy. Yeah, tough guy, right? Yeah. And sure enough, I had I think this was the worst injury I've ever had. I tore my hip flexor, which is basically like tearing your core, and that shut it all down.
From martial arts?
From martial arts.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was yoga, hands down, how I healed it.
Oh, wow.
And my
so
wife,
you've never had surgery for anything?
No.
That's so good.
Yeah. So that was an option. In that moment, that was all my options. So I went to 3 different doctors at the time. I was living up in Atlanta, and they all suggested for a hip flexor surgery. And I didn't want to do it for a couple of reasons. I couldn't work. Yeah. If I had, 4 or 6 weeks down. So I'd rather just hobble around and figure it out. Right. And I knew, this was the interesting part. I knew back to that statement, if you want different results, do something different. So this was the first time I was willing to literally put aside a time frame on healing. This is, I think, one of the most important parts for everyone listening today. When it comes to our health, is where we don't help our bodies, is we put time frames. We say, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see how this goes. And we have a time frame, 2 weeks, a month. It took me 6 months to even get back into push-up position, meaning that I couldn't even go into plank. Yeah, okay. And I was doing yoga every single morning at about 5 a.m. in the morning, and I could only do it from my knees. My body couldn't handle the terror, couldn't handle it. Okay. And from there, it was an eye-opener, and then everything started to get better. Like my shoulders starting to replenish because I get better range of motion, and then yoga became a big part of my life. And that's, how old is Balance Studio? Kelli opened that in 2005 or 2006. Okay. So it's been there for a minute. Yeah, a little bit. And that was interesting too. When she first opened, same. You've been around long enough. She was, yoga down here, never going to work. Yeah. Which was, it was inspiring, and it was never done from a negative way. It was more of just people don't do it down here. Yeah. Well, they do now. They do now. Everybody. Yeah. So we're also now a yoga teacher training school. Yeah. So we've really been able to have an impact on the industry. Yeah, really. Principle. Yeah. Yeah. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. Wow. So it was you were both really like a hand in glove with, you're both athletes, right? I mean, that's kind of interesting too. She's the athlete. I'm the pseudo athlete. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, but I mean, I just play athlete. She was like, for real. Yeah. I know. I played field hockey in high school, and I can't imagine what it was like to be on. They were incredible athletes. I would train with their Olympic team, and so I mean that wholeheartedly. Oh yes. Yeah. So I had an opportunity to go with the team, the national team, and help them, and then I would train with them. Ah. And were you married then or dating? Both. Okay. Both. Okay. So we went from the dating engaged phase, and then we didn't get married until she decided to retire from field hockey. Okay. And that was extremely humbling. I thought that I always worked hard for rugby. And then when I worked out with that field hockey team. Really? Then I was like, oh, that's why you're all Olympians. And I hang out on the weekends. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. That's hardcore. Yeah. The men and women that make it to those levels. Yeah. They're superheroes. They really are. Yeah. We watch them on TV and we think, I could do that. Well, I don't know if I ever think that. But we think about the gold winner, and we don't even give credit to the person who came in 20th. But that person is an elite world-class athlete. And so all of those men and women, now I call them boys and girls, that
Right.
are on any of the level. They're what the time and the pain and the efforts they put into being awesome what they do.
And so that was in Atlanta where you were training too, right?
It
So
was.
that's pretty amazing. What a ride, right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. When I look back at it, I wish I could say that there was a master plan, and there wasn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't to come down here and open up. I had practiced in Atlanta for 10, 12 years. Then to just decide that we're going to, pack up and do it in a different place. We fell in love with the community like many of us that are down here. Everything about it. And to think that we'd one day open a yoga studio, it's turned into a health studio, and then to open up an organic cafe next to it. It looks perfect on paper. Almost like we trickled it down that way.
Yeah.
No.
I know. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know too many people that have one. I didn't. I did it like a similar walk to you too. But I am jealous sometimes of people who do have a master plan that actually works. I mean, I would like that to happen once or twice in my life, but it's okay. I think that my own journey is similar to yours in that it's just exactly where it needed to be when it needed to be. Wow. Well, this is definitely bringing the pages of the magazine to life in a way added value, added storytelling platform. And I thank you for being here. I think you're great. And I'm a fan. And thank you so much for everything you do for everybody and just your inspiration. You're a very inspirational person. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And thanks for the kind words, the love, and keep doing what you're doing. I know that you've been at this, and now you're offering another venue for people to, especially, a lot of us that are local, to get to have conversations, which I think is one of the lost arts.
Agreed.
But desired.
Agreed.
Yes.
I know. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. And I know you got something out of this. Dr. Bart is amazing. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Bye-bye.